How do you tape 50-meter segmented highlines together? Check it out while I tape my Inov Split on this episode of How Not to Highline. Hi, I'm Ryan Jinks, and I have way too much webbing. Here I have 20 IKEA bags with two 50-meter pieces of webbing with simple sew-in loops on either end, together, taped together in each bag. Some of them are not taped yet, and so I wanted to make a video sharing how I tape my Inov Split segmented highlines together, because it's not as simple as just like one big continuous long piece of webbing. One thing I have here I want to share is a bag of two 25-meter pieces. I have technically two of these laying around here, and that is very nice when I know I'm going to go do the taft line that's like about 51 meters, where I'm not going to be able to just use one segment together. So this way I choose where that segment is going to be, because I don't really want it next to the anchor if I can help it. But all my other pieces are 50-meter pairs, and I just connect as many pairs as I need for the highlines that I do. Now, the Inov Split is nice for a couple reasons. The first one is that you can just buy webbing as you go. You get quality highline webbing with a simple sew-in loop on the end. You just keep buying them in 50-meter segments, and voila! This is all my webbing I've collected over the years. The other reason is if the main line fails, you only drop 10 meters, regardless of how long the line is. The third reason is, now that we just discovered how to stabilize the leash rings on top of an Inov Split, and that'll be a separate video, for rope swings. And then you tie your ropes to that and you can jump on almost any highline now. And it doesn't have to be a rope going all the way across to stabilize that, but that's a whole different video. The Inov Split is great. I've passed over the connections many times. I've stepped on the connections. I like it. So, but you can't just tape these things normal. You have a couple connections that usually involve the extender that you want pretty close to the main line, and those will be reverse sliders. And then I like normal sliders where the backup sliding and the tape is actually fastened to the main. And so I do a combination of different kinds of tapes and different kinds of methods to make the perfect tape job. So the first thing I'm going to do is flake these out very nicely into a pile, and I'm going to bring them over together and flake them into my IKEA bag. These IKEA bags are awesome because I can put them into backpacks, compress them, and attach them at the highline if I want multiple people to carry multiple pieces, instead of one person being stuck carrying 300 meters or 600 meters of webbing. Okay, let's tape these together. So both of my pieces are 50-meter pieces, and so we have to add an extender. This is a 5-meter single strand of Dyneema, 6mm, very important. I do use 5mm soft shackles for the connections, but you do have to use 6mm Dyneema for the extenders. As far as people's concerns of the backup flipping over the main and potentially cutting this, because this is a round surface over an edge, I don't believe that's a problem when you only have 5 meters of it. If you have 300 meters of it and it wraps around 30 times and it's seesawing back and forth, that is a problem. So that's why we don't use Dyneema backups anymore. But I like them for the extenders. I do pad one end of these, and so that is designed to go over my padded loop. The other side that is attached to the soft shackle is not padded. It didn't give me more strength when I did my tests. So to girth hitch it onto here, which is my method of doing it, my spider silk, by the way, is my backup because it's strong and tight, static. This is Feather Pro. I like walking on Feather Pro. So let's add the extender. So you slip the loop over it. You don't girth hitch like this. You want to get a stronger girth hitch, doing it properly by going over and then taking the tail, going in the loop, and My goal was to make that look easier than it was. Anyways, you want to dress it. You want the padding on the padding. Pull that there, pull that there. And now that is girth hitched. Now I don't want to leave that like that because this is going to bounce around. Climbing tape. I have 3 different tapes here. I have electric tape, fiber tape, and climbing tape. Climbing tape's pretty dang sticky, and something I'm not really going to remove often, if ever, is I'm going to tape this onto here. Now what I do is I kind of give it a spiral because I want to be able to see what's going on inside of here when I'm highlining. I want to be able to inspect that. So I just leave a little bit visible and I squeeze and it contours to everything and it doesn't come off whether it's cold or hot. So that isn't going to come undone, and I can see that the girth hitch is padding on padding. So this part is done. Now, my other side of my 5-meter extension is going to be paired up with my webbing here. Now I have to decide if I want blue up or green up now, because I have to make sure I stay that way the whole time. What I'm going to do is leave these in the bag. No Inov splits, no soft shackles on anything at this point. And I take climbing tape and I'm going to write top. I found this to be very, very helpful. So I just put it right on the stitching. Just a little simple piece of tape over that. And I'm going to put blue up. I'm going to put top. Because when you connect it to the soft shackles later, I did this 2 weeks ago. I put bottom on the soft shackle and I had to undo it while I was sending the line across. It was a pain in the ass. These are easy to fix because they're only in 50-meter sections and they're easy to screw up. So top up this, and I want to keep this together. One option I have is to just tie an overhand knot in this. Do not highline on this overhand knot, please. It's just to keep everything together at the same connection points right here. Another option is to tape something that you can remove later, because you don't really want any tapes right at the junction. It's not necessary. So now my extender is 3 full arm lengths if I stretch this out. And what I like to do to keep the Dyneema as close as possible to the main line is I'll do, let's say 1.5. Do a short one. I'll do right there. Now, this is where the electric tape comes in handy, because you're going to possibly have more issues with your extension than anything else. And so I just use a normal main, sticky to the main, slider on the backup. So I go like this, and I go underneath, and then I tape it around. Now, if I have to fix something, it's a lot easier to undo electric tape later than it is fiber tape. So I like to put that there. And then when I get to the girth hitch, you want the girth hitch to be sucked up against the main as close as possible. Because when you're trying to walk over this, you don't want it to be drooping like this. That would suck. The ring won't slide as smoothly. So you want it to just be hugging right here, but you want it to slide. So you have to do reverse slider tapes. So in order to do that, I like to flip it over because I'm so used to doing normal slider tapes. And this is where I use electric tape as well, because if I have to fix it, it's a lot easier to do so. So I make sure it's very secure by doing 2 full wraps around the main webbing. Do 1. Make sure it slides. It's very important that it slides, because if it doesn't, then it will create a problem later. So I check. You always want to check. You don't want to assume. My main is sliding over that. Now, the trick with the extenders is you want to leave more tail. You know how you go past right here? You have to leave more than you think, because it's round and your webbing's flat. Line it up so there's no sticky. And then tape that. I go over twice. And I like to have the part I rip off here to be underneath the high line. because I don't want any more layers on top than I have to. Right now I have 2 layers. So what's really cool about this is my main slides back and forth, and this is hugged right up against that. And if this is tensioned, it's super, super smooth. It was perfect this last weekend at Taft Point when we experimented with this. Now we start using fiber tape going down the line all the way until we get to the end, because I don't need to be adjusting these later, and I want them together forever and stable. This fiber tape is 1.5 inches wide, which is unnecessary. I have a lot of it, and that's why I'm using it. I would use 1 inch in the future. I've seen a lot of people use 3/4 inch. If it's gonna hold, it's gonna hold. But anyways, I do like to fold it over a little bit before I start, because if I'm trying to pick at it, because you can't break it with your hands, it is going to be hard to undo on the high line. Now let's talk about spacing. Here is my girth hitch. Now if you have a reverse slider and a normal slider, they will hit each other if they're too close to each other. So I don't want anything too close, especially to the first thing here. So I'm going to go anywhere between 2, 3, 4, and 5 arm lengths. 5 arm lengths is a pretty big backup loop. Let's start with 3. You don't want to do them all the same, because then the backup loop is consistent, and a consistent backup loop actually makes it harder to walk. Blue is still up. You don't want to get this twisted in the process, or you're retaping things. Here we go. This is where I want to tape. I have this folded over. I put it a little bit more than 1 inch past my main, just like normal slider tapes. Flip that over so this part's not sticky, which means it'll slide on the backup. And now the sticky part is touching that part. I'm going to go around. So now I have the non-sticky, sticky, and sticky again. So that's 3 layers on top. Be careful. Let's say right there. Now, very important, very, very important. Fold this over. Fold this over. Okay? You don't want this little flap to be on top. That's annoying to line slide and everything. But you so badly want this flap if you're trying to undo it later because of a twist or something. You got to fix something. And you want to make sure that it's sliding. You don't want these so loose that the backup can twist inside of it. That's what happens if your tapes are loose. And you don't want it so tight that it doesn't slide. I'm going to give that a little bit extra that way because the backup needs to have loops. And I don't want about like 5 meters of backup when I'm at the end. So this next one, I'll just go 2 full lengths. 1, and I'm flaking it in the bag as I go, which saves a lot of time when you have 2 kilometers of webbing. 2. Right there. I'm going to fold this over a little bit. And I'll show you how I untape it if I had an issue. Go over, go under. I'm going to go 1 and 2. That's 2 sticky layers on top and 1 non-sticky layer. You want to keep this flat, probably go right there. Allows me enough room to fold that over about 1/4 inch, tape it to the bottom, and my flap is on the bottom side. Now, if I have to untape this and I'm hanging on a high line, all I have to do is grab this, and that part's easy. The part here that's attached to the main line, it doesn't necessarily stop you from doing what you need to do, but it is kind of annoying. Sometimes you can just reuse this if the backup is all you're just trying to fix is the backup. But what you do is you pull it like you're trying to rip a normal tape, and you just pull at that. And what I do is I stick a carabiner in there, and you're pulling the glue apart, which I found to be doable. Like right there, I can now stick a carabiner in this hole I've created, and you just pull. You're not going to break your webbing, and you're going to be able to pull it apart. The other option you have is how we folded it in half. You can pick at it, which is a little tricky when you're on a high line. and you can literally pull the tape apart from each other. Probably a little bit easier if I haven't gummed it up already. Anyways, I can pull it off with my hands if I'm intentional about what I'm doing here. You want to be able to repair things on site if needed. So I'm just going to continue this between 2 full arm lengths. Oh, got to keep blue up. 2 full arm lengths and 3 and 4. This one I'm going to do 4, and let's get to the end. Okay, I am at the end here. I do have a lot of spider left over because I wasn't putting extra spider in the bag as I went. But what I can do is tape this. I'm going to say main. This is just a label. I know Feather Pro's my main, but I'm going to put main and top. Not all of my pairs are so obvious. And if somebody else is putting this together, this label really, really helps them. I'm also, in this case, going to do, on my spider silk, backup top. Because sometimes it's pretty confusing to have to go back to your original tape to figure out which side is up. Backup, top. And then I have the choice of whether or not to just do this or tape them together, but that works for me. And I keep this on my bag. Push everything down. This is the top, so sometimes I just put it through here. Yet again, another knot. And the bottom, wherever I left it, let's see here. There we go. And the bottom, that ideally I should have done this first. I take this and I'll clip it or tie it off to this other side. And it's pretty obvious what side's top, but this way I have both ends because I have to Inov split this to one other segment and Inov split this to the next segment. And I can do all that if I take the knots out first, set all my bags up, connect them all perfectly because everything's labeled top and bottom. Connect them all, and then I can do that either at the Highline site, or I could do 3 of them at home, flake them all into a bag, and another 3, flake them into somebody else's bag. You can decide how to carry them, but this is, other than the backup not being evenly across, I can deal with that when I send it over. This segment is taped. Since we're here, let me show you how to Inov split these together. Right now, I have the main and the backup on top of this bag, and I have the main and the extender backup on the top of this bag. I like having the backup extender not connected to a backup extender, so I'm only dealing with Dyneema, which has not been a problem so far when I've highlined, just periodically every 50 meters, instead of 2 of them coming together, which would make almost 10 meters of Dyneema in a line. But I guess that's not the end of the world. Anyways, these are all labeled main top, backup top, and obviously this is the backup, and it's round, so there is no top. Anyway, so I'm going to untie this. Make sure you don't Inov split this through the handle of the bag. This is all in there nicely. I'm going to make sure everything's sitting pretty, so that sits pretty. And then I'm going to untie this from my handle, making sure that I don't connect these through the handle. Now let's say 2 people brought this up to the Highline spot in individual bags. I can do this on site, or I can do it in my living room and flake it into a bag before I go. Let's see here. That's sitting on top nicely, main top, backup top. So this is how I'm going to connect them. Now what I have here are 2 different sizes soft shackles. They're both 5mm in Dyneema. This gives us 29 kilonewtons strength from our loop, because soft shackles can reduce the strength of your loop, but it's nice when these are padded. It is pretty hard to pad an Inov split because it's in a figure 8 shape. but it's not necessary because I'm getting 29 kilonewtons out of it, but the loops have to be padded. 6 millimeter soft shackles only give us, I think, 3 kilonewtons more the way I do this. And to me, that's not entirely worth it because the button heads, these are 25% smaller than a 6 millimeter soft shackle. It makes all the difference when you're sliding over with a normal ring. Unless you're using big bomber rings, I sure like having these small heads. It's made a wonder of a difference. Anyways, you start with the big one, and you're going to go through main. Basically, the most important thing is making sure you have these in the correct order. And before you go through the next sew and loop, you go through itself. Then you put it through the sew and loop, and it creates that 8 shape. Now you want to make sure that your button on your button knot soft shackle is inside of this loop here. How do we do that? Climbing tape. So what I do in order to prevent this from opening, not that it would under tension, but I put a little piece of climbing tape right at the throat, and it's not going to open that way, especially because climbing tape's very sticky. It does leave a little sticky residue on there, but it's not going to come off. And then I'm going to tape this in place right over that loop. And that keeps that button where I want it. Make sure everything's orientated correctly. And now, the magic of the Inov Split is that I'm going to put this down both holes of the figure 8. And this is how I'm going to connect the backup. So this is the top of the backup, and this is the top, not the top, it's just the extender. Then I'm going to close it. You don't do any special figure 8 shapes, you just do it normal, but it just goes through both holes of the Inov Split. Take your climbing tape and tape your throat closed. Now, I've done this a couple different ways now, and I just this last weekend loved what I did. I took this button and I put it inside of this loop. I tried in the past to put the button not on the same side as this button. It's too many buttons in a row. Let me pull it around, flip it around. I would put it on this side and try to stick it inside of this hole. And just, it feels so smooth when I'm here in the living room. But as soon as there's tension, it just pushes it down. There's no getting it back in there, and now it's sticking out. It really was hard to get my ring over like a month ago when I had that problem. So what I do is I put it through this loop, and the loop's going to be taped really close to this, and it ended up being really nice. So again, I use climbing tape to keep that button knot inside of that sewing loop there. It doesn't take much to keep it there. You don't have to go nuts with it. And now I have my main high line, main top, main top. That is so important. And then all that's loose. Now you don't want this dangling. That's a cluster right here. So I'm going to, you have to twist that in order to get it flat because this kind of wants to sit sideways. So I just twist it a little. And this is the top of the backup, so that's nice to know. I offset it a little so the buttons are offset from each other. And the extender can be right there. So then I don't do slider tapes. Very important here. You just want to secure the crap out of it. I'm going to go around 2 times and rip that there. And that's really smooth when you're sliding over. I'm going to pull this tight, everything tight. You want your main tighter than your backup. And then I'm going to tape that super tight there. Not slider tapes. Just go around twice. I kept the tape that says main top. No reason to take it off. And this is my high line. And my ring slides over it really nicely. You don't have to put your rings on it this time. You just do it on the one end that you want it when you're rigging. But this is all done. They all come out of the bag as you flake it out. And actually, what you would need to do, now that I'm thinking about it, if this is top, this should be attached to the bottom because I have to send out one or the other to the other side, and they're at the bottom. So I screwed up that way. But what I could do, if since I'm in my living room, and if I want to take 100 meters of webbing out, so I would just go like this into this one bag because it fits quite nicely. And I would just flake it in really nice and perfect. And then take this one bag with me, and I would have 100 meters and 100 meters ready to go to send across. You want to do all the prep you can at home, because if you're at your highline spot, it can take significantly longer if you're trying to do everything on site. It's a lot easier to do in the comfort of your own home. I also want to mention that these are two different sizes. This is a 6.5 inch or 17 centimeter soft shackle, and that is the distance when it's closed. So that space right there is 6.5 inches, and this smaller one is 4 inches when it's closed, and that is 10 centimeters or 4 inches. I feel like I've dialed in the length to the size that I want, because if it's too short, you're not going to have enough room to get your split, this thing down the sides. I probably could do 1 inch shorter now that I put the button knot in the other sew-in loop, but I like that space. I've stepped on the Inov Split directly and it doesn't roll on me. It was fine. And this you don't want any longer because it's not necessary, and if it was longer it would sit in there funny. This could almost be a 1/2 inch shorter, possibly. But I really like the 4 inch and 6.5 inch soft shackles for my things. Now, I do have to have this pair of soft shackles for every connection I need to make. So technically I need 19 pairs for my 20 sets of 50 meter pairs here. So that's a lot of soft shackles, but I go to gotomarine.com, I think. I get them for pretty cheap. I bought a spool of them though, but that's the best price online I found. They don't sponsor this at all. It's where I buy it. And I think it was like 63 cents a foot for the 5 millimeter soft shackles. So it's a pretty good price. So the Inov Split is our effort to make highlines more economical, since you only have to buy 50 meters at a time, and a little bit safer if you're doing bigger lines. Because if the main line fails, you only drop 10 meters. Now, if you're only ever going to highline 100 meters ever in your life, then you only need to buy that webbing that you need, maybe 120 meters twice. But if you're going to try it for anything longer, this is definitely the way to go, because it is awesome. Now, this does reduce the strength a little bit than if it was one continuous piece, but it does give us other benefits. There's always pros and cons with everything you decide. No system is perfect, therefore you shouldn't highline.